Hey, Evelyn.
Hello there.
So great to see you. Welcome, welcome.
Likewise. So good to see you again. I'm glad we're doing this again.
Me too. Me too. I'm super excited and honored that God's asked us to do this. I know for you, same for my heart. It's just we really want to help people. We want to encourage the church to be who we're called to be, to really step out into the field and being exactly what we're called to be, which is love and light and what goodwill to the world, right? Jesus said, I came to bring goodwill to all mankind. And I think that he does that through us. So super excited to be able to conversate more about that today. So a little bit on our topic, everyone. We're actually going to be talking about connection in the church. Why is it such a challenge to have connections in the local church, or even with your friends or family members that are in the same church, right? Or in church. So we're going to start off with that conversation today. We know last week we had some great opening conversations, thoughts about what this could look like. And we really appreciate those who gave feedback. And we do want to continue to get your feedback and your questions. And we want to hear your stories. How have you overcame pain in the church? And then how have you also maybe not have overcome the pain, right? And what are you dealing with so that we can hopefully bring hope and solutions from the kingdom of God, from the word to you. But anyway, so let's get started on that topic. Dr. Evelyn, you know what? Just go ahead and dive in. Just give me some thoughts. What do you see the local church connections being like right now?
So, overall, Natasha, there's been a disconnection and a difficulty in connecting with people overall, just throughout. The people I see, they've had a hard time. Everyone feels disconnected or out of community. Overall, that has happened in the last few years. But when it comes to the church, I feel that there is more resistance because remember, if the enemy can take us out of community and isolate us, he's done his job.
Right.
So in order for us to continue fighting to be in community, it's gonna be an uphill battle sometimes.
Mhm.
One of the things I've seen in the church is that we connect superficially. How are you? Oh, I'm in victory. Oh, everything's great. Oh, yes. I'm doing great, but not really.
Right.
Not moment victorious. We have difficulties at times. So it's that I feel there's a facade that we feel we have to maintain in the church, and
Mhm.
we have to be in victory because if we're not, then we're not praying enough, we're not fasting enough, we're not being good Christians. And it's that mentality that really
Right.
needs to be broken off because everyone struggles with something. Everyone has, life has ups and downs. Therefore, we really need to just be authentic and genuine. And it's hard to do that if you always have to be at a level that it's all victory and great and joy and that and all that.
Right. Right. No, I totally get that aspect. Like, we feel that we have to be a certain way, right? So that's going to be one of our topics today, guys, is we're going to talk about expectations. Why do we have them? Like, do we feel we have to show up at church as the perfect person, as someone who is being this way or that way? What will our leaders think if we're not up to par, right? So I think it's super important that we talk about expectations. One of the stories that come to my mind about my life was, we were 6 years married and couldn't have kids, and God supernaturally healed my womb to have kids. Truly a miracle. We'll talk about sometime. But as I had kids, I started having more anger issues, and up to that point, I mean, I guess I had anger, but I don't know. Sometimes kids or spouses bring it out more. And you're like, oh my gosh. And my kid maybe wasn't even two yet. And I remember this one time I got so angry, I threw my purse like down right to the ground, but it was like, 5 feet from the kid or something. And he screamed. And I was like, I mean, it petrified me. I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus. I can't believe I just did this. And you know what I did? Like, and I've always been this type of person since I've been saved. Another funny story later, but I went straight to my pastor. Told him, I was like, I need to meet with you in the church, like ASAP. We need to set up a meeting. And I did. And I told him, I was like, I have anger issues and I don't know what to do with them. Obviously, some of it was postpartum too, right? There's things that go on there, but I have built that muscle up that I confess my sins. I'm like, listen, my first time I sinned as a Christian, I was probably 19 and I went to a beach trip with my cousins. Okay. And I got tipsy more than I ever had in my entire life after a Christian. And I was like, this is not good. So I went and told my youth pastor, my prayer team leader. I told my main pastor at that church, 3 different people. And all 3 of them were like, Tasha, you don't have to tell everyone, but I was like, I don't want this sin. I know I did wrong. I don't want to be this way. And that was like 25 years ago, but it was still the fact that I confessed it. And I just remember the Lord telling me then, Tasha, that word that talks about what confess your sins one to another, right? You're supposed to do that. And I think if we build that muscle up to people that are safe for us, it helps you to do it easier. And to me, the more and quicker I confess a sin, the better I'm overcoming, right? Like, so even when I met with my pastor for this anger, and I guess now it's been 10 years, but it was easier to overcome. And I didn't have to show up at church in shame or just hiding or not feeling good enough because I told the main person. And not that you have to tell the main person, but that's just who I was a direct assistant to. So I had that connection. So I told him directly and was able to get it out there to say, hey, I have an issue. And of course he was very, very gentle and nice and light about it because he's like, that's actually pretty normal after birth, and I'm like, well, I'm just saying I don't like it. And so anyways, it's just really good, guys, to think about your expectations. What are you expecting? Why are you expecting them? Where did you learn them? I think that's a super important topic we can dive into.
And you said 2 very important words, safe. You went to a safe person.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to build in the church, outside the church, everywhere we go. The corporate world, we know it's I'm going to get to the top, therefore I will step on whoever I want. But that should not be the church. So
Right.
we need to make those safe communities, safe people. What about me makes people tell me their life story? What kind of environment and am I fostering where people feel safe to tell me their story? People feel safe to call me and say, Evelyn, I need prayer for this. And I think that that's what we need to build, that safe community. So I love that you said that you went to your pastor who was a safe person. Each of us have to work on being safer every day. I work on it all the time because a lot of people come to me and I'm very like, oh, I need people to pray for this. But I have to be very careful about that because I have to protect them. And I had a friend, she's in the entertainment world and has a lot of difficulty trusting people because it's usually people wanting to come to her for something. They need something from her, or they're not genuine, or whatever it is. And she was telling me her life. So she was going through a divorce at that time. And she came to me. At that point, I didn't think I was her closest friend, but she felt safe coming to me. And ahead and built a community of my friends around her so that we could pray during her divorce, a very bad divorce. And we all kind of put our arms around her. It was during COVID. And we all put our arms around her and walked together with her until we saw the Lord. We prayed together. We were her safe group. And I think it's very important, Natasha, being that safe person. And we each have to be that safe person.
Yeah, but okay, so let's talk about that. So, but how do you become a safe person? Like, I don't know. I was, in leadership for like 14 years and I still thought I was safe for everyone. Like it's so funny now, but back then I used to think, well, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, we should be best friends. Like, I mean, there was literally, that was my thought. It's like, if we're in the same church, even if we're not in the same church, if we're talking, then we should trust each other instantly. It was like this, just, I don't know, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I went around just expecting that from everyone, and I expected everyone to be safe for me. So I vomited all my life, and all my issues. And, which did come to find out I did lose friends for, because they couldn't handle my issues. And even if it was a pure, it wasn't like evil issues, it was just like a challenging marriage, right? And they're like, oh, we don't want to handle that mess, or, there was just people that come to find out weren't safe for me. But I didn't know that I wasn't safe and that others weren't safe for me. So what are some things that can we share that would help us to say, is this person safe for me, or am I safe for these people?
And I think that comes with experience, and we can all be a safe person, but we need to work at that. I think in the church, one of the main issues is privacy, where as a psychologist, if a client comes to me, I can't divulge whatever they told me. I can't go out and share with other people. I believe that that's issues, the big issues in the church, that as the leadership gets together, they have to say, we need to pray for this, we need to pray for that. But sometimes that information gets out. And I remember experiencing that, and even being that person as well, when I was young and I was in leadership. And I think we need to acknowledge it. We really need to acknowledge it and say, why did I leak that out? Why did I say that? Working to be a safe person. What makes me want to share it? What makes me want to divulge whatever private matters this person has? Sometimes it is because you need the backup in prayer. Sometimes it is when more people can back you up in prayer. That's a good intention, but we still have to be very careful. Right now, I have a group of people. Whenever I need a backup in prayer, I know I can call them. I know I can say, "Hey, I need you to pray for this," and I know that they're ready, because that's who they are already. They're safe people for me. I've shared, and I do the same thing that you do. I share a lot of my life. I put it out there, and as a psychologist, I have to be very careful sometimes. But that's just who I am. I do share my story, and I remember I was in church this Sunday, and the preacher was like, some of you need to just shut up. I didn't say shut up, but I was like, in Spanish, it's cállate. I'm like, yeah, I need to cállate. I need to just shut up and learn not to share with everyone. We have to have a safe community, and that's built through experience. That's built through maturity. And sometimes you're going to share something and people with the wrong person, and it's going to hurt when you hear them sharing it with somebody else. But that's when you need to say, okay, maybe this person I need to pull away from until they learn not to share whatever they shouldn't be sharing.
Right. Wow. That's such good points. I love, like, even going back to expectations. And I think you even said it as, why am I sharing? Why am I expecting this? I think, in the church, we grow up thinking, right, that the main leaders are the ones who need to guide us, like, no, they need to tell me what to do. They need to tell me how to do it, which, yes, they're feeding our maturity, which it says in Ephesians 4, right? All those are there to mature the church, to unify us. But it is still our personal responsibility, as Paul wrote in many of the books, and other disciples, that we're responsible for our feelings, our heart, our emotions, which we'll talk about in another podcast. But, so the point of all of that is to say, since you're responsible for you and I'm responsible for me, I need to ask, why am I asking and trying to get this person to go to coffee with me so bad? Why am I really seeking these ladies to chat with me or to hang out with me? Like, what is it that I have such an obsessive? So usually when you're in need of something obsessively, it's usually an unhealthy thing, right? It's something that's a lie or something there that God wants to heal. And it doesn't mean you're awful or evil. It just means that, oh, wow, I have something I'm lacking. And it could be a lie I'm believing, making me feel like that I'm lacking, Therefore, I'm really pulling on other people unhealthily. So I think asking those questions, why am I expecting so much? Why am I looking at these people so much? Why am I feeling and thinking of this every time I walk into church every Sunday, which used to be me? Like, who's going to talk to me today? Who's my best friend? Like, how am I going to connect? Like, doesn't mean you can't search for those things in the local church. Obviously, we're supposed to. But when it's a driving force, I think it's a really red flag to go after.
And it could be a need for connection, one, which is a good thing. So in moderation, it's a good thing to be connected. For me, Natasha, I feel that when I don't want to go to God because I'm either disillusioned because I have an unanswered prayer that I'm upset at, I don't want to face God sometimes. I don't want to sit with him because I feel disappointed, because I feel angry at him because he hasn't answered my prayer. And that week, I'm just upset. So I will bypass sitting with God, and then I'll go to other people.
Right.
God has called me up on that several times where I'm like, I just want to share it with other people. Why? Because I'm avoiding God.
Whoa. That's a good point. So, and you think that can that come based out of to our thoughts and beliefs of God? Like, okay, so it's not always that God is trying to tell us to do something that we don't want to do, but sometimes it's just a belief set. Like, well, my dad was not okay with me whining, and I'm in a whining season right now, and God's not going to be okay with it. So let me just go talk to my best friends every Friday night over wine, like, which is okay sometimes. I'm not saying you can't do those things, but again, when it's only those things or you're running from God, that's really a great point. Yeah, I love that.
That has been my experience. The other thing I want to go back to that you said, and so I feel the enemy isolates us when we're struggling. He isolates us, and I have seen this pattern over and over. So he comes and isolates us from people because people we talked to were not safe or was not genuine, or I wasn't able to connect with them. I will isolate myself, and once I'm isolated, then it comes with all these lies. And I've said it this way to people. He puts you in a kind of a cell, and then he's instigating you and bombarding you with all these lies against who you are, and really bullying you because now you're isolated. You can't trust people out there. You can't even trust people in the church. And that's a blanket statement. There's always someone you can trust. We just chose the wrong person to trust, maybe. Or the person made a mistake and they're not going to do it again. So it's not that we can't trust people. No, it's that we need to be better at either vetting people we can trust, or we need to forgive that person because they made a mistake and they're not going to misuse our trust anymore.
Wow, that's such a great thing. Like you were saying with the isolation. So usually, yes, we get hurt, which is why we're starting this whole series, Pain in the Church, because there's a lot of pain in the church. Listen, we're humans, we're people, it just happens. But yes, when we get pain in the church and we isolate, that is the first thing Satan wants to do, right? You're not worthy. Like, look, these people don't like you. Like, he starts speaking in our thoughts. So just really, again, you're being aware. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? Why do I not all of a sudden want to go to church anymore, or show up on a Bible study, or even serve the homeless with the ministry that I'm part of, right? Like, why am I not doing these things? You have to question those things, because if not, the enemy will make it a belief system for you, right? And like, you'll be stuck in it, and that'll be your identity. And then it'll be, then it'll be other people's identity of Jesus, right? Because they're looking at you, a Christian. And then they're going to say, wow, well, she doesn't go to church and she's mad at so-and-so because it comes out your mouth what's in your heart. Then it can also represent Jesus incorrectly, right? So that's, if you don't want to do it for yourself, which you should, do it for Jesus, right? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? Isolation is another big red flag. So I think we were saying some of the red flags is, of course, one is isolation. And then I love that red flag. That's a great one. And then the other one I think will be like an obsession or driving force of your need has to be met. I will tell you with the Lord, what the Lord did for me. So I was, abandoned. I had a dad who unfortunately was in addiction and wasn't around. And then my mom wasn't around because she had to care for us full time. And then got into the church. My first church, I got kicked out of the church, right? I think I shared that story. So it's constant abandonment. And so rejection became my identity. Like I was basically a person searching for rejection, expecting rejection. Like it was just who I was. And with that became very obsessed with being seen and known. It's like I needed that. I had to have it. I didn't have a dad to tell me anything. I needed a dad spiritually from what I heard, right? Everybody's got to have a spiritual dad, which I think is healthy, but it's not the case in every season. And so, that was what I was searching for. So what the Lord did, he said, okay, well, let me give you kids and then I'm going to take you out of leadership. And now you're out of the church. And then I'm going to move you across country. So I didn't leave the church until I moved across country, just so we understand that. But then I moved across country, didn't know anyone, didn't have any leadership, anything happening, right? Wasn't part of a local church until we found it. I mean, he didn't like feed my need. He said, no, I have to be the one, God saying, I have to be the one to meet this need, Natasha. I'm not going to give you 5 dads. I'm not going to give you best friends to go cross country with you. I'm not going to give, I want to be that solution for you. So for my journey, that is what broke me free from being obsessed to have my need met by the local church in an unhealthy way. And again, we'll talk about the healthy expectations, but these are expectations, guys, that we're having in an unhealthy way. And it's from our needs and wounds that haven't been met yet. And for me, the Lord wanted to meet it himself. And it really brought me such freedom, such freedom. I would not have it any other way. If I had a best friend that stuck with me that whole time or a pastor, I just don't think I'd be as strong as I am now because I was completely in a new world, a new space without anyone. Even my husband was struggling at the time and wasn't there for me. He couldn't be because he had his own things. But it was just really challenging. But with God, I had favor. I grew, as you know, that's where I met you. I mean, I had so much favor in 5 years than I had 14 years over here. I had favor more in 5 years because I felt God's love. I was accepted by him. I didn't need anyone's acceptance. And God said, okay, you're ready. And he just brought me all this favor.
And I think there's moments, right? Because I remember when God kind of pulled me away from leadership, I stepped down from every leadership position I had, and the Lord was like, "You need to heal." And I sat down for, I want to say, about a couple years where I just sat with God, and he transformed my heart completely, where I literally opened my heart. So there's those moments where God needs you to pull away, like he did with you, brought you to a different environment. For me, God was like, you need to sit with me because you've been so busy at church that you have not spent time with me. And those were the transformative years. There is a before Evelyn and an after Evelyn. And this Sunday, my sisters and I got together. We were talking, and one of our new friends, I was trying to explain to her the old Evelyn, and she's like, I wouldn't have liked you. And I go, I didn't like myself either. I went through this transformation just between God and I. He really broke everything I believed, everything that I held close to my heart. That was a real, true surrender. But you know what? I had to sit and say, there's a lot of things wrong with me right now. Backup people, and I was preaching in the church, but if you cross me, you would, I'd get you back. I'm Jesus, but I'd get you back. And the Lord was like, you're carrying a lot of unforgiveness. You're carrying, there's a lot of anger in your heart. And the Lord just turned me upside down. I started the process of healing, Natasha. And I'll be honest with you, that Evelyn that that had so much pride and so much arrogance and thought she knew it all. That Evelyn just completely like was so humble during that alone time with God.
Wow.
It just transformed me. And for my sisters, who are the closest people, to
Yeah.
say, oh my God, Evelyn was not the same after that process. So
Wow.
sometimes, because a lot of people say, why don't people like me at church? You know what? And some people, I want to say this with all the love in my heart for you, because I was that person, but
Right.
people are unlikable. Some people are unlikable, and they have to work on being better people, heal
Mhm.
people, and you have to work at it. It's not just going to come from sitting. It's not going to come from that. I had to ask people, what are the areas you see in my life that I need to change? You know how many times, and I still do it now. I still ask people close to me, and I'm like, okay, how do you perceive me? What's going on with me? Because they're going to tell me, yeah, you know, this area maybe you need to work on, and that's important. But a lot of times when we're broken, we don't want to hear, oh, you need to work on this. We get very defensive. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, I already worked on it. And I'm like, no, I'm still working on so many things. I'm 52. I've been in the church. I'm a psychologist. I'm still working on being better every day.
What? I am so shocked. Just kidding. No, it's so true. Oh my goodness. I think, so I have my 6-week course of Alignment Within, which deals with a lot of this. But, and I share it was 15 years for me, but it's still going, of course. But 15 years for me to at least like myself enough and love myself and believe other people did also, so I can step into my calling. Like, if I couldn't overcome those things, then I would not be able to step into what I'm actually called to do. So just as a recap, everyone, like, some of the two red flags. I want to spend the last half of our conversation on the positive side and what we can, build up. But, this first part, we're talking about, it's ourselves, right? Like, you need to look within. We need to look within what's triggering us. Why are we having these obsessions, or the necessity of, I have to have this person or know this person, connect with this person. Sometimes that's a red flag, just to say there's a need there that God would love to meet if you were surrendering to him with it. And again, getting multitude of counselors, guys. So we're not giving you advice directly because we don't know your situation. Always get counsel with many people, right? He says, in a multitude of counselors are you safe. So do that, do that with who God leads you to. But anyway, so that's one. And then the other one was isolation, like Dr. Evelyn was saying, if you're isolated, like, that's a great red flag too, to say, what's happening? Like, who offended me? Who am I offended? Like, I don't know. You just really need to dig into those two red flags and say, what's going on within me first? Okay. And we'll talk about the leaders next, but what's going on within me? Like, what's happening in my heart? Why am I triggered so much? Why am I experiencing these moments where I'm not feeling connected? Like, what's going on within myself? Do you have any other ending comments with the person looking at yourself?
And I think we got to actually look at our patterns. In the past, I remember I wanted to teach people, to preach to people, because when I'm preaching and teaching you, I'm not connecting. I'm just putting myself up here and telling you, well, the Lord says. And sometimes in the church, because I remember this guy I used to have a big crush on when I was a teenager, and all he did was, like, whenever you wanted to talk to him, he would give you a Bible verse, which is great.
Yeah.
That was it. So there was no real connection. So
Right.
and I remember, and I catch myself sometimes when I don't want to connect with someone, then I put myself in a level where I'm teaching at them, when I'm preaching at them, when I'm just talking about myself and not really asking them about themselves.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Which goes back to what some of the basic connection and community, advice, which is listening. Like, Okay. I mean, even in marriage, right? Or even with kids, like, what did you stop and listen? Like, did you actually hear what they said? um, and that's because people will say that I am very, people that see me from afar are like, you're so popular, you have so many friends. And it's like, well, listen, it's because I crave to know people. And like I said, it was very unhealthy in the past. So I will say the enemy can even misuse that, because it was like, I got to know everyone and everyone should know me. And that's not the case now. But I do crave to say, what's your heart? What's your passion? So even if I meet you on the street, I'm going to ask you, like, what are you called to? And people love that. They love to be seen and known. So if you are working or wanting friendships, or you feel like it's a season where God's saying, yeah, connect with people in your local church, like start branching out. You have to be curious of other people's lives, right? You have to step out of that and say, okay, how can I ask questions about them? How can I be curious about them? This is a really great step that you guys can take, is be curious about even your leaders. Hey, when you're meeting with your leaders, don't just say, oh, I need prayer, help me with this. Say, oh, you know what? Hey, what's God showing you? What's God's what is God saying to you right now? Like, I'd love to hear, ask about their life and their journey. And it really does help that become a safe connection. Doesn't mean people be your best friends. Okay. So again, the expectation has to be shifted, which we'll talk about seasons and connections with that in a minute. But just know, if you're curious about the person in front of you, asking questions about them, they're going to feel connected and seen. So like you're saying too, you mentioned, so let's just pause with that point. But I want to go to another one, which is, you said that teachers and preachers, right? They're not connecting. But what happens when you're in the pew and you're listening to that person every Sunday? You feel the biggest connection, right? How many of us have said, my mentor is this person who lives across the world, but they read my mail every time I listen to their teachings because God's using them. Obviously, it's not a bad thing, but you feel like that's my best friend. Like, man, I can be their granddaughter, or I want to be their daughter. Or I want to hang out with them. And then when you say hey to them, they're like, oh, hey, because obviously there's hundreds of thousands of people maybe. And they're like, they don't treat you the same. So let's talk about that. Like, that's probably a really huge trigger and issue in the local church, because you are close enough to those leaders that you can see them in the hallway, but you're still not best friends. But why do you feel that you should be or shouldn't be, or what is that?
It's interesting because I've seen everywhere you put a group of people, there's usually, or I want to say always, but in psychology we say never say always or never. But so I'll say usually, there's going to be the people. So it's gonna become a triangle, and everyone's gonna want to go up to the top. So a lot of times when a leader, God is using them and they're preaching or they're charismatic or whatever it is, you got to see why you want to connect with them. Is it that you want to connect with what they carry, with the anointing they carry? Is it because of the charisma? Why do you want to connect with them? Or is it because that social advancement? And that's one thing that kept me in a friendship, I believe, for a long time, where that, I'm the friend of the leader. Now that gives me status because I'm the best friend of whoever it is in the leadership. And those are not good reasons to connect with someone. You're compatible. I told you, I became a leader really early in life, and yes, people wanted to connect with me, but sometimes the people who wanted to connect with me, I didn't connect with them, and I tried, but I was like, but they were not the person that I, as a leader, wanted to connect to. And it's sad because, yes, I talked to them, I sit with them, but when it came to long-term friendships or connection, it just wasn't there.
Right. Wow. Oh, and is that evil? No, right? Like, that's not evil. And, that's one of the first things the Lord had to show me is, I had throughout my entire journey, even in that first church that I got kicked out, it wasn't really the pastor that kicked me out. It was his family, because I was friends with his daughter's ex-boyfriend. So again, it was immaturity with his family, but they controlled him more.
Yeah.
So he was able to agree. But anyways, he was still an amazing man. But my point being is, like, all my leaders were amazing, but God said, I just lost what you just said about the leaders.
I was telling you that sometimes there's not going to be that chemistry between
Right.
the leader and you. And I remember, because I remember people wanting to be my friend, and I was like, I already have my friends, and you have to connect with you. And when you and there was times when I would sit with someone because I felt bad for them, and I would sit and I just didn't connect.
Yep. Right. And that's what the Lord showed me too, is that, we feel like we are friends with them when someone shares from the pulpit because they share their hearts, right? They share the deep hearts. And sometimes they're sharing only because God told them to. So it's not something they'd share one-on-one at a table. Like, okay, well, you're connected with them that way, but in person, and meaning on the streets, they're not just going to be that open book or just talk that deep, right? Because they're doing it in obedience, and maybe they're an introvert, right? So you just never know. So again, we're bringing up this topic, guys, just to, question again, why are you doing what you're doing? Question your expectations. If you feel drawn to a leader to be this kind of connection for you, whether it's a spiritual father, mother, a best friend, a mentor, whatever it may be, just know that you have to still surrender it to the Lord. That was one of the key things the Lord gave me was, Natasha, do you trust me to bring the right friendships? Like, I had to surrender controlling everything and people talking to me or responding to my texts, calling me back. He's like, do you trust me with all the friendships that I give you? Like, I have to surrender it to the Lord. So I think if you really want to stay healthy too, guys, is, ask the Lord to be Lord of your relationships. Like, God, the friendships I'm to have in the season, you're going to keep them. You're going to bring them. You're going to make it aware to them. I don't have to chase people. Like, they're going to be able to be there for me, because I've been someone who has transitioned from South Carolina to Charlotte to San Diego to like another church and another church, and not, it was all like 5-year increments, but still, when you're shifting that much, you have to get good at making new friends and be good at receiving rejection because you don't know if that person is supposed to be your friend, but you knock on the door and then that door shuts and you can't be mad at that person and you can't be rejected because I've learned, I trust you, God. You're going to tell me who's to be my best friend. You're going to bring the right person along the path, right? You're going to tell me how to hang out and when to hang out with someone, right? So let's talk about that for a moment too. Like, sometimes friendships are in seasons, right? Or any insider that you want to speak into, like friendships with that.
Yes, and I feel that God has, throughout my life, there's been some friends for swing seasons, and then you just kind of drift off because your assignment or whatever you're doing, or they got married, they had kids, or it just, our lives went different ways.
Right.
And there's times that because this friend is not going to be the person who's going to shape you further
Right.
for the next journey that you have, I've had God take friends away from me, and one of my friendships that was the hardest, because it had been a friendship of over 30 years,
Right.
and this person, she felt God had called her to kind of consecrate, and kind of pull away from me, and she pulled away at the moment when my mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. And it was just the hardest moment for me. And I remember thinking, I need her right now. Why isn't my friend here for me? But I could see her walking away. In retrospect, I can tell you, yes, it was God. It was completely God leading her to that. Because it was at that time that God started putting people around me that walked through me, through my mom's illness, and then through her passing. And season, God was starting to launch me into a new season, and I wasn't aware. He didn't send me the the memo telling me, and I remember that was the friendship that hurt most for me when I saw my friend pulling away, and it was a healthy thing for her and for me. I wasn't aware of that. So trust God. He pulls people away from your life, and when he puts people in your life. And now I have a completely new circle of friends, a very different relationship where we're not doing everything together every day as I used to with my other friends, but it's different and it's more mature. And it is the group I needed to walk with me through the new season.
Wow. That's so good. I love that. And that brings in, like you said, the seasons. For me in my life, I remember, even I met my mentor. So, like when we're talking about, reaching out to people in leadership and saying hey to them. Well, so my very first mentor, guys, I was maybe a year in the Lord. I was walking out on a Wednesday night and at the door, and I felt God say, ask that lady to be your mentor. I didn't know her. I think maybe we had a prayer meeting once or twice together, but I didn't know her personally. And I was like, that's so weird. I'm not going to ask some strange lady just to be my mentor. So God will do things like this. Okay. And I went to go walk out the door. I swear it was locked. I was like, what? And it wouldn't open. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, Jesus, I need to go ask this lady to be my mentor. So I went up to her and I just said, I said what I felt like. Hey, I just feel like God said, to ask you to be my mentor. Can we just maybe go to dinner or lunch and just chat about it? She said, yeah, actually, I've been drawn to you too. So yeah, let's talk about it. And I was like, what? Now, listen, that was once in 20 years. So I haven't had that great of a divine appointment. So I'm just saying, but it was so divine. And we were 10 years of mentorship. And she's still a good friend of mine today. We chat. But that was 10 years but it was only happened. So again, trusting God with your connections. Sometimes you have to be obedient this way. Can you ask a strange person, like, hey, I feel this, and then, but trust God. Like if she said no, I had to trust God too, to say, okay, I didn't hear from God, or it's not the timing or whatever. Like it's not for me to figure out. I just need to be obedient. But trusting him with those connections, that was such an amazing thing. And, there was another season where same thing happened where the relationship changed in such a drastic way. And I had to trust God, and he prepped my heart for it. But it was so painful. I lost a really close friend to just them choosing a different path. And it was such a hard season for me. But if I didn't trust God, I could have gotten mad at him and the church, right? Because when you put so much weight on relationships and people, that's what happens, which is why we have pain in the church. Really, if we think about it, the core is we're putting people as idols when really no one should be able to meet the perfect standard that we have in our minds.
We want people to meet the need that only God can meet.
Right.
Yeah. And we look for people for affirmation, for validation, to heal us, or to give us the word to heal us. And a lot of times we substitute people for God and our connection with God. Whenever I do that, I know myself. One of my friends used to say, you carry tuna. So basically, I remember when I don't want to talk to God because of whatever I'm feeling towards him, I'm carrying tuna, and I'm avoiding having that intimate time with God. And I will be like, oh, I'm meeting my friend here and my friend there, because I want to meet the need that only God can feel for me.
Wow. That's so good. And, and those are the friends that, are amazing to keep around too, obviously. And so stewardship to a relationship. So, well, let's just make sure we're covering all the leader aspects. So we've talked a lot about us individually, but leaders do fall, right? Leaders do fall short. Obviously, there are people that are not intimately, like obviously in relationship, but more connected to leaders, right? Because you're serving them directly one-on-one. You're not like the third or fourth person in a team. You're like one of the leaders serving alongside their vision. And when that happens, because leaders are human, right? they're going to fall short. And so let's just talk about that a little bit. So how do we handle that? So what are some of the thoughts? Because this can be breaking connections in the relationship of the local church is when the leaders fall short. So any thoughts you want to start off with?
And that it was not until I, as a leader, fell short that I realized, oh, okay, everyone does it, right? But it hurts us. And I think having I'm going to say this very carefully because I don't know every leader, and a lot of leaders, we walk with arrogance and pride sometimes. So if anyone tells me, hey, you're falling short on this, or you hurt me, or whatever it is, I have to always watch out that I'm not responding in pride. So one of the things I tell leaders is this: if someone comes to me now, the new Evelyn, if someone comes up to me and says, hey, Evelyn, when you said this, you really hurt me. And my first inclination now is not going to be self-preservation. I'm not going to be like, oh, wait, well, it must be you, not me. No. And I think that's what God calls all leaders to, and that's a humility. Now I would be like, okay, let's, I did not mean to hurt you. So I will be quick to ask forgiveness. If all leaders would adopt this would heal the church greatly. Preservation, instead of trying to be like, oh, it must be you, not me. Let's look at it. Let's sit down and let's have a real, genuine conversation. The problem in the church that I find is that I remember when someone used to come and say, Evelyn, hey, you said this and you did this and it hurt me. My first comeback, and sometimes I'd be like, yes, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, but put it on the person.
Right.
That's not humility. So I always say in my book, I say you may win the argument, but lose the person or the friendship. Which one do you want? Well, as leaders, let's try to save the relationship. Let's try to work with that person. And there's difficult people that everything, hurts them. If you correct them, they get hurt. But let's work with that. Let's work with them in order to help them not be offended all the time.
Oh my goodness. So good. So good. Okay. So my thoughts are going so many places, but talking about where you're at even now, well, first off is no, I don't know if I want to go there yet. We're going to talk about the size of churches and all this, but, just back to leaders, whenever, someone comes to you, I don't know if this is Danny Silk or someone, but, there's always a piece of truth in criticism, even if it's from someone that's wounded, right? So even if they said, hey, you didn't, I don't know, you didn't respond to my text again. And, if 10 people are saying that to you, then you might need to stop and say, let me go see. I'm like, oh, I have 300 unread text messages, so really as leaders, we have to pause and take what is said and say, God, where's the truth? So obviously that person is hurt. It could be their issue. It could be your issue. It could be both. Or it could be none. And it's the accuser of the brethren, which I can't wait to talk about. But, there's any of those pieces could happen. But there's always a piece of truth when someone's coming to you with criticism. So please try and pause and say, okay, Lord, or wife or son and daughter, the people that live with you will probably know these things, right? And even people that are in your church. And I've heard just a quick note to pastors say, well, I'm accountable, and they're usually accountable to people at their level, which is great. You need to have those people you can trust, but those people are not going to know your weaknesses as well. Like they're not the ones in your little area, right? In your church, in your ministry, in your business. They're not the ones facing you every single day at a different level. And so we will see your shortcomings, and you can try to hide it. You can try and not confront it, but everyone under you or around you will see it. And so I love the most, who is that? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So he's done other books, Stephen Covey or something like that. Anyways, but he's done other books too. And, having, oh my goodness, like weekly meetings where people can confront you is healthy, So if you are a leader listening to this, the best thing you can do for yourself in your church, I think, in your ministry or business, is to say, okay, I'm going to have quarterly meetings or weekly meetings or monthly meetings with the people that are around me, under me, above me, everything, to say, hey, how's it going? What do you think? How am I doing? What do you think? You have to be confronting to me, and I have to be open. Doesn't mean I have to agree with you, and you have to learn that you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to change anything, but hearing what they're saying, you might be shocked at what people are actually seeing.
I totally agree. And I don't think this happens often anywhere. I don't think I've heard that from most leaders. And it's so important. God has given us people's hearts to steward, to heal, to help care for.
Right.
We're held as leaders at a higher level of responsibility for those hearts. So what comes out of our mouth, whatever behaviors we have that need to change, we need to take that responsibility. Leadership is not about just being the top-notch person, talented person. No, it comes with a lot of responsibility, and it's stewarding people's heart as well,
Right.
making sure that we are not causing their hearts more hurt.
Yeah, so true. And then where does that start, right? Obviously with ourselves first. So even the same thing goes with for followers and people that are serving the local church ministries or businesses. As a leader, you too have to question, why am I getting triggered by this person? Yeah, they could have issues, but listen, Jesus' disciples had issues. Okay. Like if you think that you have someone that you have a right to kick out of your church, then I would question or look at Jesus' story with, who was it? Peter, who said, denied him 3 times. Okay. Literally denied him on this time of, how many of us would say, oh yeah, here's my best leader, and then they denied me and my ministry, but then, oh, well, let me come back to you, leader, and say, will you feed my sheep? Or what do you say? Feed or catch the fish. I can't remember that's the what he went after, but he went to him and redeemed him first. How many of us as leaders can say, yeah, someone would spit in my face, but I'm going to go back to them and redeem it first before anyone else. I'm going to go deal with that, and for redemption, not to confront them, not to kick them out of church, but I'm going to go for redemption. Like, I don't know. I'm always convicted with that. God always brings it to my attention, even for marriage. Like, Natasha, you think your marriage is hard? Like, how about someone deny, your most beloved, one of your beloved disciples denying you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So I think as leaders, we just have to be aware of our hearts. Why are we being triggered? Why are we, not liking something, or someone's annoying us, or I don't know. You just really have to get humble and surrendered and really die to yourself as on both sides to say, what is going on with me first? Then I can truly look at the situation as well. Yeah.
Love will always prevail. Love will always prevail. And as leaders, let's genuinely love people, and that will always prevail. Let's not use people. And there's a lot of usage in the church. This is a topic for another day. There's a lot of using people in the church. And as leaders, we got to be careful. But let's love on people. Love will always prevail.
Oh, let's end it with that. That's so amazing. I think, love prevails. Like God did say, the greatest above all these things is love. If we truly are going to follow his word and what he says, then I think that would be something to take in serious consideration. That love will win. Love covers a multitude of sins, right? There's that verse. He didn't put that in there for no reason. You forgive 70 times 7 times a day. So the person who's serving you, or the leader who's serving you, they both serve. Did they offend you 70 times 7, today? So if not, then you're good. So you're still within the reins of grace with Jesus. Just kidding. So love, guys. That is where it's at. Make sure you're surrendering your heart to God to get his love. Okay. God says that we love him because he first loved us. We don't love him for anything else except we see his love to us. And we're like, wow, I love you, God. Thank you for loving me. And then what does he say, right? The next commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. And so as you know God's love for you, you can then love yourself, then you can love others. So this is really a love cycle that we'll talk about in the future as well. But thank you so much for joining. Any end comments, Dr. Evelyn?
Just keep loving people. I feel we every opportunity we get, let's honor and love people, and that will definitely take away a lot of what the enemy wants to bring to break us apart.
Amen. I love that. I love that. Well, there you have it, guys. Such a fun topic. We have a lot more coming. We'll do this every couple of weeks. We, again, love hearing from you, love hearing your questions. So make sure you're reaching out to us. If you want to be anonymous, you can definitely check out the website at reignforeternity.weebly.com. You can put in a question without your email, and we can try and address it on the podcast and the video like this. But again, thanks for joining, and thank you so much, Dr. Evelyn. So great to see you. And until next time, guys, reign on earth as it is in heaven. Bye.
Take care.